Arcadian Vanguard presents The Wrestling News and your daily wrestling newscast for Thursday, September 8th, 2022. Good morning, I'm Mike Sempervive. We begin with more fallout from AEW's backstage altercation in Chicago on Sunday night. According to an exclusive report yesterday from Sports Illustrated, CM Punk may soon be suspended or fired from AEW as a result of his actions Sunday night after All Out, in which he took part in a physical altercation backstage at AEW's post-show media scrum. Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks have reportedly been suspended for their involvement in the incident, as have Michael Nakazawa, Brandon Cutler, AEW Vice President of Talent Development Pat Buck, and AEW Manager of Talent Relations Christopher Daniels. Ace Steel, AEW producer and longtime friend and trainer of Punk's, may also be departing the company along with Punk for his part in the fight, according to the SI report. DAZN's Stephen Mulhausen tweeted yet Wednesday morning that a third-party investigation was underway. On Wednesday, the Wrestling News reported that there is an internal investigation being conducted, which is being led by AEW's general counsel, Christopher Peck. The Wrestling News also reported that AEW wrestlers and other personnel who were involved in or witness to the backstage altercation are or have been interviewed as part of this internal investigation. It was reported by Sports Illustrated that CM Punk and Tony Khan had met on Tuesday to discuss how Punk's potential departure from the company should be handled. The Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer also reported that Punk and Ace Steel had a Zoom meeting scheduled with AEW personnel yesterday afternoon. Before AEW Dynamite began on Wednesday night, CM Punk, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks were all removed from the signature video that opens the show, and their names were not mentioned at all during the broadcast. As far as the television show itself, AEW Dynamite emanated from the Key Bank Center in Buffalo on Wednesday night and opened with a pre-taped announcement from Tony Khan in which he announced both the company's World Championship and World Trios Championship were vacated. After an initial greeting from the announce team, the show was immediately pitched to Khan.
Following All Out on pay-per-view this past Sunday night, I've been forced to vacate the AEW World Championship, as well as the AEW World Trios Championship.
Khan announced the World Championship, formerly held by Punk, would be decided in a six-man tournament that began last night, the finals of which will take place September 21st at AEW Dynamite Grand Slam in Queens, New York. Chris Jericho and Jon Moxley both received first-round byes and are scheduled to face the winners of the two first-round matches. Jericho will face Bryan Danielson in a rematch of their All-Out bout this past Sunday after Danielson pinned Hangman Adam Page last night with an O'Connor roll, while Moxley will face the winner of Darby Allin against Sammy Guevara, which takes place this coming Friday night on Rampage. When it came to the Trios titles, which Omega and the Bucks had won less than 3 days ago, a deciding match between the Death Triangle and Best Friends was held. Pac, Phoenix, and Penta claimed the titles when Pac pinned Chuck Taylor after the Black Arrow.
Buffalo, New York! The devil is back!
MJF also returned to AEW television after re-emerging at this past weekend's pay-per-view and winning the Casino Ladder match to earn a future shot at the AEW title. After feigning fan-favorite behavior, MJF had a confrontation with Jon Moxley. This was MJF's first appearance on Dynamite since May 30th, when he was suspended in storyline by the company for cutting a profanity-laced promo on TV against both the company and Tony Khan. The main event of Dynamite saw Daniel Garcia defeat Wheeler Yuta to win the ROH Pure title. Garcia, wrestling in his hometown, was introduced by hip-hop artist Westside Gunn, who rapped his fellow Buffalo native down to the ring. Garcia won the match in 16 minutes and 3 seconds, forcing Yuta to submit to the Dragon Tamer in the middle of the ring. After the match, the Blackpool Combat Club's Bryan Danielson then came down to the ring, snatched the belt out of Garcia's hands, before wrapping it around his waist. In other results from the show, Wardlow defeated Tony Nese to retain the TNT Championship, and new AEW Interim Women's Champion Toni Storm defeated Penelope Ford in a non-title match. In addition to Allin vs. Guevara, it was announced for this Friday's Rampage that Samoa Joe would be making an appearance and speaking, and that ROH World Champion Claudio Castagnoli would face Dax Harwood. As of this morning, the only matches announced for next week's Dynamite are the 2 semifinal matches in the World Title Tournament. With this WWE report, here's Lou Kipilman.
Pat McAfee will be stepping away from his duties as a WWE TV announcer to accept a new full-time position as a sportscaster for ESPN's College Game Day, according to a report in the New York Post. McAfee asserted on his social media and on his YouTube show that he will remain a part of WWE in some capacity and will continue to do things with them in the future, although he did not reveal any immediate plans.
The folks at the WWE, who I have nothing but love, respect, and appreciation for. I'm talking old regime, new regime, whoever you think is in charge over there, I have nothing but great feelings towards. So I reach out to them, I chit-chat with them. They actually were the ones that said, hey man, if you're going to do game day, which is a great opportunity, congratulations. We're actually, I think WWE has been a part of game day a few different times. Mm-hmm. We love the show. You cannot be traveling overnight for the entirety of the season. Yeah. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your family. It's not good for anything.
For the wrestling news, I'm Lou Kipilman.
An update on Malakai Black's status with AEW. Black has been granted a conditional release from the company, according to a report yesterday from Fightful Select. Among the reported conditions and restrictions on the release is one that would prevent Black from appearing for other wrestling companies, at least for the time being. This kind of conditional release is unusual for AEW. Black still has 4 years remaining on his 5-year contract with the company. As of last night, Malakai Black was still listed on the AEW roster page. In the initial version of yesterday's newscast, we reported that Black had been removed from the page. We updated the story, and we apologize for that error. In ratings news, the post-Clash at the Castle edition of Monday Night Raw did an average of 2.054 million viewers on the USA Network, according to Showbuzz Daily. That number is down 2.51% from the previous week's episode. In the hourly breakdown, the show did 2.088 million for Hour 1, grew to 2.12 million for Hour 2, and then dropped to 1.954 million for Hour 3. In the key 18 to 49 demographic, Raw scored a 0.58 rating, down just 1.69% from last week's 0.59, according to WrestleNomics. The show ranked number 2 for the night in the demo on the Cable 150, down from the top spot last week. In overall rating, it came in at number 4. Total viewership was up 11.09% from the same week in 2021, and the demo was up 11.53%. With more WWE news, here's Lou Kipilman.
WWE announced yesterday that the 2023 Royal Rumble will take place Saturday, January 28th, in the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. This will be the third time the Rumble has been presented in the Alamo Dome, with previous editions taking place in 1997 and 2017. WWE Executive Vice President of Special Events, John Sabor, referred to the event as one of the cornerstones of the Alamo Dome's 30th anniversary celebration. The event will be headlined by 2 30-men and 30-women Royal Rumble matches. For the wrestling news, I'm Lou Kipilman.
Speaking of San Antonio, one of its native sons, Shawn Michaels, has been promoted to WWE's Senior Vice President of Developmental Creative, according to CBS Sports. Michaels will continue to be in charge of NXT Creative and developing NXT talent, as well as now overseeing NXT's brand expansion, including the upcoming launch of NXT Europe. Michaels has been with NXT since 2016. He took over creative duties when Paul Levesque suffered what was described as a cardiac event in 2021 and has continued to do so even after Levesque's return to the company. In injury news, AEW's Chris Statlander revealed on social media that she underwent knee surgery yesterday. AEW reported in mid-August that Statlander had suffered a torn ACL. Her last match was against Sierra at the August 5th AEW Dark tapings in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Statlander could be seen grabbing her knee in pain at the conclusion of the match. Statlander suffered a previous ACL injury in 2020, which caused her to miss 10 months of action. And finally, some news from Japan. Keiji Muto, better known in the United States as the Great Muta, will wrestle his final match in the Tokyo Dome on February 21st, according to an announcement yesterday from Pro Wrestling Noah. Muta has been on a retirement tour, which is also set to include one last match under the Great Muta persona to be held January 22nd at Yokohama Arena. His opponent for either match was not revealed. In a press release issued last night, New Japan Pro Wrestling announced the launch of NJPW Tamashii for the Australia and New Zealand markets in an attempt to mimic the success of New Japan Strong in North America. The first show will take place on November 11th in Christchurch, New Zealand. A second show on November 13th has also been announced for Liberty Hall in Sydney, Australia. Already signed for the debut shows are IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion Taiji Ishimori, Kenta, and Bad Luck Fale, who has been helping to run the company's dojo in Auckland, New Zealand since it was established in February of 2020. Tickets for the events will go on sale Friday. And before we sign off with you today, we'd like to remind you that the Wrestling News is on Twitter. Follow @WrestlingNewsAV for Arcadian Vanguard's daily wrestling newscast, breaking news, and more. Once again, follow @WrestlingNewsAV for the wrestling news. And that's the news for today. If anything happens, we'll be here to tell you about it. No clickbait, no paywall, just the wrestling news. The Wrestling News is a division of Arcadian Vanguard, and the Wrestling Newscast is a production of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network.